All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something really fundamental, mitochondria.
Ah, yes, the powerhouses.
Exactly, the powerhouses of the cell. But, their health is deeply tied to how we age. So much so, mitochondrial dysfunction, it's now considered a key hallmark of aging in that recent framework.
It really is central.
And we've got some really interesting research here today focusing on a specific molecule called SS-31. You might also see it called elamipretide.
Yeah, this is such a fascinating area. I mean, we're talking about therapies aiming to tackle aging right at the cellular level, trying to, help out those mitochondria.
That's it, exactly. So our mission for this deep dive, we want to really unpack this research on SS-31.
Get under the hood a bit.
Yeah. Understand what it is, how it's supposed to work, what the actual evidence says, across different body systems, and crucially, what are its real potential and its limitations, especially thinking about age-related decline.
Right, setting realistic expectations.
So you can walk away feeling properly informed about this corner of, well, longevity science. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
So maybe let's just start by setting the scene properly. Why are these mitochondria so central to aging, according to this research? What actually happens when they start to decline?
Well, the research consistently flags mitochondrial dysfunction as a core issue in aging. As they deteriorate, you get this kind of double whammy.
Okay.
First, ATP production drops. That's your cell's energy currency, gone down. And second, you get an increase in reactive oxygen species, ROS, often called free radicals.
Right. So less power, more sort of cellular chaos. And why does that matter so much to you, the listener? Which parts of the body feel this decline the most?
Well, just think about the organs that are really energy hungry.
Like the heart, brain?
Exactly. The heart, muscles, the brain. The research shows these critical systems are especially vulnerable when the mitochondria aren't firing on all cylinders. It's kind of like the main power grid for these high-demand areas starts to flicker and fail.
Okay, that makes sense. So that brings us to SS-31 then. The molecule this research is looking at, what is it exactly, and how does it supposedly step in to help with this mitochondrial mess?
So SS-31, or elamipretide, it's described as a synthetic peptide, basically a very short, specifically designed protein fragment.
Okay.
And the key thing is it's designed to get inside cells and actually target the inner mitochondrial membrane.
And what's its specific target on that inner membrane?
It binds to something called cardiolipin. Cardiolipin is this unique lipid, a fat molecule in that inner membrane. And it's absolutely crucial for keeping the membrane structure sound and sort of anchoring the energy production machinery.
And when SS-31 binds to cardiolipin, what happens then? What's the effect?
The idea, based on the research, is that this binding helps stabilize the electron transport chain, the ETC.
Ah, the energy production line.
Precisely. That's the series of protein complexes where most ATP gets made. SS-31 seems to interact particularly with complexes I and IV, key points in the chain. So by stabilizing it, it helps electrons flow better and, really importantly, reduces electron leakage.
And that leakage is where the bad ROS comes from.
That's a major source of that damaging excessive ROS, yeah.
Okay, and this is where the research makes a really key distinction, isn't it? It's not just like a general antioxidant mopping everything up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is, well, a really important point highlighted, referencing that redox biology work. SS-31 isn't meant to just, indiscriminately soak up all ROS like, say, vitamin E might try to do.
Right.
Instead, it seems to focus on reducing those pathological bursts of oxidative stress,
Yeah.
the kind you see in, like, injury situations, ischemia, reperfusion, while, and this is critical, preserving physiological redox signaling.
And what's fascinating there is, well, preserving that normal signaling is vital, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Cells actually use low levels of ROS for communication, for, growth signals, defense responses. If you just wipe out all ROS with a traditional antioxidant, you might actually interfere with normal, healthy processes.
That's the thinking. SS-31 seems potentially more targeted, addressing the harmful excess without shutting down necessary communication.
Okay, so that's the theory, the mechanism. Now, let's dig into what the research actually shows. What's the evidence? Maybe start with muscle function.
Sure. So studies mentioned, including some earlier mouse work, showed that SS-31 could improve muscle endurance in aged mice.
The endurance.
Yeah, and boost ATP production, and even seem to help mitochondrial structure look better in their muscles. And then more recently, there was a geroscience study giving a translational link.
Human data?
Well, ex vivo. It showed improved mitochondrial respiration in muscle biopsies taken from elderly human donors. So outside the body, but still human tissue.
That's definitely a step closer. Okay, what about the heart? Cardiovascular health seems like a prime target.
Yes, definitely. There was evidence in mouse models of heart failure showing improved cardiac output. And then there was a human trial specifically for a condition called HFpEF, that's heart failure with preserved ejection fraction.
What did that find?
It showed modest improvements, better diastolic function, a bit better exercise tolerance. But, and this is important, the research is very clear, it did not reduce mortality in that trial.
Ah, okay. So some functional benefit, but not changing the ultimate outcome in that specific advanced disease. That shows the limits.
Exactly. It highlights the limitations.
What about the brain? The neuroprotection is, a huge area of interest in aging.
Yeah. So research in Alzheimer's mouse models pointed to some positive signs. Things like reduced tau hyperphosphorylation, that's a key problem linked to nerve damage in Alzheimer's, and less mitochondrial fragmentation.
Promising, but...
By mice.
Right.
Yeah.
Promising preclinical results. But the research is absolutely clear on this. There are currently no human trials cited here showing SS-31 provides cognitive benefits. That work is still very much at the preclinical stage for cognition. Got it. Preclinical for the brain. The eyes are another high-energy area, right? Anything there?
Yes. Research in models of retinal degeneration suggested it could protect photoreceptor cells and improve visual function. There was also a recent trial readout for dry AMD age-related macular degeneration. It apparently showed slowed progression of lesions in some patients, but the research adds a strong note of caution about the small sample sizes involved there. So, tentative findings.
Okay. And it seems the potential applications might go beyond just typical aging conditions.
That's right. The research mentions it's being explored in other situations where mitochondrial problems are key, like diabetic kidney disease. There's an ongoing trial mentioned for that. It shows they're looking at it for specific diseases, not just broadly for aging.
Okay, so we're seeing a pattern, some promising signals, particularly in preclinical models or specific disease states where mitochondria are clearly struggling. But the research also takes care to spell out some pretty significant limitations. This seems crucial for keeping things in perspective. What are the big hurdles?
Yeah, absolutely crucial. Probably the biggest limitation highlighted is the complete lack of evidence for lifespan extension.
Right. That's the big one for anti-aging.
Exactly. The research states very clearly, no animal or human studies reviewed here showed SS-31 actually makes organisms live longer. Even in progeria models, these accelerated aging models, it improves some health markers. But according to this research, did not extend their lifespan.
That's a really fundamental point. Improving health in a disease state is one thing. Proving an effect on overall longevity in healthy aging is another entirely. And that data just isn't there for SS-31 based on this. What about practical challenges?
Well, delivery is a big one. It's a peptide. Peptides generally don't survive the gut well.
So no pills.
Right. You can't just take it as a pill. It needs injections, subcutaneous or intravenous. Now, the research does mention explorations, like using nanoparticles.
To maybe make it oral or longer lasting.
Potentially, yeah. But the research indicates those are still very much in development, not clinically ready yet.
So injections, not exactly ideal for, say, widespread long-term preventative use. And cost must be a factor, too.
Oh, absolutely. The research points to the huge costs of drug development, plus the whole uncertain regulatory path for something positioned against aging itself. It all makes it pretty impractical right now for consideration as a general, long-term anti-aging therapy for the public. It's firmly in the research and clinical trial phase, which is expensive and complex.
And finally, on the topic of healthy aging, despite the theory, there's no proof it helps healthy people stay healthy longer.
That's what the research states. While it's being tested for specific mitochondrial diseases where you have clear diagnosed dysfunction, no trials discussed here have shown any benefit in healthy individuals just experiencing normal age-related decline. The effects shown are mostly in situations where things have already gone wrong mitochondrially.
The research also briefly touched on comparing SS-31 to other things people often talk about for mitochondria or aging, like MitoQ, NAD+ boosters, CoQ10. How does SS-31 stack up in that context, according to the material?
Yeah, that comparison's helpful. It kind of highlights SS-31's unique angle. Unlike, say, broad antioxidants or general metabolic support like NAD+ boosters, SS-31 has this very specific structural target, cardiolipin, and this mechanism of stabilizing the electron transport chain directly.
So more targeted.
More targeted, yes.
Yeah.
And the research notes those other approaches have their own issues too, right? Things like MitoQ maybe having trouble getting where it needs to go efficiently. Questions about how well NAD plus boosters actually raise NAD plus levels inside the mitochondria and in all tissues. Uh, Regulatory hurdles for some other molecules mentioned, like SCAQ1.
So everything has its challenges.
Pretty much. SS-31's mechanism is distinct, but it faces its own set of big hurdles, especially that delivery issue, and again, the lack of proof for general healthy aging.
Okay. So let's try to synthesize all this. We've gone through the mechanism, the evidence, the significant limitations. Based on this research material, what's the bottom line? What does it all mean for SS-31?
Well, the conclusion drawn from this research is that SS-31 is definitely a compelling strategy. It targets mitochondrial dysfunction, which we know is a key part of aging.
Right.
And its specific action, selectively modulating ROS, stabilizing the membrane via cardiolipin, that really does set it apart from older, maybe cruder antioxidant approaches.
It's shown some promise.
It absolutely has shown promise and potential, but primarily in specific disease settings. Conditions where mitochondrial dysfunction is a clear known driver, like certain heart failure types, or in those preclinical neurodegeneration models. And yes, theoretically, it's appealing when you think about aging more broadly.
But, and here comes the big but.
Here comes the big but. The critical takeaway, the bottom line that this research emphasizes, is that SS-31 remains primarily an advanced research tool. It is not currently a validated longevity therapy. The major barriers, we talked about the injection-only delivery, the high costs, the lack of safety data specifically in healthy aging populations, and fundamentally that complete absence of data showing it extends lifespan in any model looked at here. All that means its role in preventing or reversing general aging in healthy people is, well, still highly speculative and, most importantly, unproven by the evidence presented in this material.
That really clarifies its current status. This has been a really insightful deep dive into SS-31 and this whole approach of targeting mitochondria. Thanks for walking us through the research.
My pleasure. It's a perfect example of how exciting the science can be at the bench, but also how much work and, frankly, rigorous proof is needed to get from a promising molecule to something genuinely proven to impact aging itself.
It really underscores that distinction the research kept making, doesn't it? Between treating a specific disease where aging might be a risk factor versus actually slowing or reversing the fundamental aging process in someone who is currently healthy.
Exactly. And it leaves you with a thought, perhaps. If a therapy shows it can improve specific health markers in diseases linked to mitochondrial problems, does that automatically mean it will prevent or reverse the normal aging process? Or is aging far more complex, maybe needing approaches that hit multiple aging hallmarks at once, not just mitochondria?
Yeah, is fixing one flickering part of the grid enough to upgrade the whole system for the long haul? It's definitely something for you, the listener, to mull over when you hear about potential anti-aging breakthroughs based on fixing one specific pathway.
Food for thought.
Absolutely. We encourage you to think about those connections and implications. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.